So again, welcome everyone. We are here today to talk about some important issues. Before we begin, we pay homage to our ancestors who made this way for us, our descendants who we are making a way for, and our teachers who have prepared us for this moment. The intent of this is to have an open discussion with our panelists about the relationship between capoeira, justice, and liberation, white silence and missteps during this pivotal time, and beginning to forge a way forward, understanding that we don't know everything and that's okay. We recognize that we are each individuals in a collective struggle. We don't represent the Black voice because we are not a monolithic community. And once again, we don't have all the answers. So at this point, I'm going to ask each of the participants to introduce themselves. And while you're introducing yourself, answer the following question. Why did you accept to be part of this panel? We're going to start with Professora Amazonas. Make sure you unmute yourself.
South Capoeira, I pay respects and honor to the ancestors that brought me here and to have a platform here. I accepted the opportunity to speak with the community because the community has reached out to me and asking questions of what can we do, how can we unify, and how can we move forward, how can we heal. And as a person where it seems that my experience is respected, and the stories that I share and the experience that I share is something of value, I thought to stand in front and to help in the ways that I can. We all fight differently, but this is one way that I know that I can fight, and I can fight very well alone or with others that are willing to move forward in this direction as well. Thank you.
Professor Malandro.
So, yeah, Malandro. And the reason why I decided to join the panel, it was almost decided for me, not just this particular panel, but just the role that I have stepped into for the community, to be a representation not only for myself, but also for the ancestry, for the teachers, of capoeira, for the art form, for my community. So it's almost, it was almost like a responsibility to step into the role and do my best to share my voice, my opinions and thoughts, and bring people together like we're doing now.
Professor Sarara.
Salve guys, Sarara here. I'm very excited to be a part of the panel. I'm honored to be a part of a collective group that has we have some power, and we have some, we're stronger together. I'm excited just to have the conversation. You hear a lot of people talking about, we need to listen, everybody needs to listen, but we also need to talk in order to have good leaders talking about the issues that we're having and how we can move forward as a community, how we can support people that are before us and the next generation. So I'm just excited to start the conversation. I'm grateful for all of you here today.
Contra-Mestre Cocada.
Bom dia, everyone. Thank you for coming. I accepted this opportunity because there was just a moment where a lot of the capoeiristas of color just kind of needed each other. And it was this natural funnel of just cohesion that happened. And we started to share stories. We started to have conversations and be vulnerable and talk with each other. And then from that, it just started to blossom. And then ideas started to be exchanged. And then this is where we are right now, is in this situation. So it is an honor to be have a seat at this table today in order to exchange stories. Everybody keeps talking about facts and facts and facts, but we need to also have honest exchanges with one another. And we have been part of this community for decades. And this is a way that, you know, we can be the change that we wish to see in the world, is by continua. Thanks.
Contramestre on the Mansa.
Salve, bom dia, everybody. First of all, honor and respect to our ancestors and also any elders that may be listening in. Thank you for this space and opportunity to share. I have been involved in capoeira for a long time, but in answer to the question outside of that, I've been told multiple times that my voice is powerful and that people want to hear what it is that I have to share. And I am a person of action. If I see a problem, then I have a strong urge to try and help resolve it. And I think that we are all called to do that in some way. And part of the way that I respond to a call to take action is to speak up, is to facilitate the asking of questions and help try to find answers to those questions. I've been doing that a lot in the healing community, and as someone that takes just the health of all people very seriously, I think in Capoeira right now there have been some actions taken that have caused some hurt for people, and I want to be involved with helping to find solutions for that current hurt, and also to put things in place so that we don't continue to hurt one another outside of a kick here and there. So that's why I'm here.
Contramestre Versatil.
Bom dia, gente. Thank you all for being here. Again, I asked leave from my mastery and the ancestors and the elders who are here to speak. Thank you for the invitation. Really, I feel that I sit at a number of intersections, and that has allowed me to have a certain point of view that is widely encompassing. And I think because of that, a lot of people ask my opinion and ask for a certain level setting, a way to bridge points of view on a lot of subjects. And as that goes, this is another subject that that I've been asked to weigh in on. And I'm very humbled and grateful for that. You know, I also live as part of a revolutionary tradition. Both my parents were part of the Panther Party. And I've learned as I've grown up, anytime a Black woman asks me to do something, then I must consider doing it. And there are a lot of sisters, both present here as well as non-present, who have asked me to be here, both in this place now as well as in this place as part of the way that I live my life. So I hope this is a continuation of that growth and that evolution. None of us are perfect, but we step towards betterment for ourselves and for the community. That's why I'm here.
Ashe. Contramestre Army.
Good morning to those that are on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast. And thank you all that are being here. Again, let's give respect to the elders and the ancestors. Why I was called to be among the panel is I'm still trying to figure that out, you know? We have a big obligation as leaders into our community to move the ball forward and make stuff better. So that's one of the, I think, one of the reasons why I was called here, to address a lot of these issues, because we have a lot of connections with a lot of people, and sometimes they may not get it, may not understand it from one person, but they may understand it from their cousin. It's just putting it in a different way. So I thank everyone for having me here, and I'll try to do my best to answer the questions that are forward. Thank you.
Mexe muito tempo.
Hello, everyone. It's what a challenging time we're in. I wanna give thanks to my ancestors, all the ancestors, for just creating this opportunity. The people who literally died for us to be here and to enjoy this art form that we can all participate in. I want to thank. I think it's very important for me to do this before I speak, because I want to thank the mestres here. I was even telling them I should not be at the top of this list. All right, some of the other people here are still my seniors, ranks and stuff like that. I understand. I understand the importance, but I have a very big respect for the people who came before me. This was, you know, we have all these different challenges going on right now. It's not just like one thing, it's like 15 things, and we're getting pounded down, and it's a very emotional time. And I would say last week when the issue happened with Floyd, it's not so much, I mean, that was an insane situation that occurred, just completely insane. And I think it was just a big reminder that I'm just tired, just so exhausted of the normalization of violence towards Black people, not just in this country, all over the world. You know, we have so many problems in the world, but this is what we're talking about right now. And I think it's very important for us to have these uncomfortable conversations so we can move forward. We can talk about what we can do to actually make it better. And it's not just, and then, I mean, I would really say in this art form, let's talk about the uncomfortable things that are still occurring this day to the people who, the ancestors of the people who created, whether in Brazil still, there's just a ton of racism towards these people. And I really feel like the people who are listening to us today, you've come here because you wanted to come here. You obviously want to understand our position, what you can do to maybe help it, not maybe, what you can do to help move it forward. And it's not to say that we have all the answers, but I think just communicating is one step towards that. We all have different lanes that we can help move this forward. And I think this is a start. And I really hope this ignites a big fire for us to move forward and make some big changes, and not just be like, oh, well, it's, I'm used to seeing that towards Black people. That is completely insane to me, you know? So you are all here because you care about the things that we say. And so I think it's time for us to say something, you know? And I hope we continue to say more things and motivate this community and, you know, everybody who's watching all over the world to make a change.
All right, so here's the first question. Speaking about uncomfortable topics. What are your thoughts about those?
Moderator, excuse me, I'm sorry, Bamboo. Thank you to everyone who donated so that we can raise money and awareness for the families we signaled out to. If you can speak to that, that would be appreciated, please.
Me? Amazon?
Whomever, you know, your name is on there. You can go for me.
Okay.
Go.
Yes, that's, thank you for bringing that up. The situation, today's topic is about what's going on with Black people. And as most of us know, the situation in Brazil is beyond tragic with what's going on with Corona. And I mean, these were ideas that I had before even trying to figure out a way to support mestres, teachers, male, female, women, and everybody who is continuing to struggle in Brazil. So we are collecting funds to send to Mestre Joel. We picked two people. We're not saying this is the answer to the problems, but we want to get the ball rolling. And so we picked Mestre Joel's family, big Mestre who just recently passed. And we picked Mestre Onça Negra, who is a very well-known teacher who's also struggling in Brazil. Many teachers cannot teach, and if that's their only form of income, I've talked to some people who haven't been able to teach for 3 months. You know, here, you know, we might, even though the situation is difficult here, imagine not getting anything at all for 3 months. So any dollar that you give is going straight to them. I will post a picture of the Venmo if you want to see all the funds that have been raised. But we're sending all that money to them just to try to alleviate some of the stress they might be incurring right now. And remember, anything that you give is multiplied by 5 or 6. So
Moito, what are we at right now in terms of the funds? The last time you checked.
I'm gonna check right now. We're at $2,200.
Whew.
So thank you, everyone. And, you know, multiply that by 5. And, you know, that's amazing. So I think all of us all over the world I think it's an obligation to give back to those who cannot support, right? We get to enjoy this on a daily basis. So anything that you give will be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Moito. So let's get into the first question. The first question is, what are your thoughts about those who would say Black Americans are appropriating Brazilian culture by embracing capoeira?
I'll go first. And this is just like my personal opinion. I don't feel that's possible from my point of view, because for many reasons. One, for example, like Bahia has the highest population of African descendants outside of the continent. So then many of the expressions are quote unquote like Black expressions or African expressions. And I can't speak for everyone, but I can only speak for myself. And as you guys just see as an example now, we, the people on these panels, this panel is of African descent. And here we are taking the opportunity to gather finances and send that back to Brazil, send it back to the motherland of capoeira, to show that we support, to show it's not even the thought of like, make sure that we don't appropriate. It's almost like sending it to your family, your distant family. So for me, the feeling that I get when I go to Brazil is that they see me as a part of their family. Like I look Brazilian and they don't know I'm not Brazilian until, you know, I speak my Portuguese with my American accent. So me personally, I've never felt that the side eye of like, you know, is he, you know, kind of fronting or appropriating the art form? Because again, it is, regardless if people want to use the term Afro-Brazilian or just Brazilian, the thing that's undeniable is that capoeira is the result of the African diaspora. So I feel that anyone who is of African descent has a right to represent, has like automatic access to it. Now, some people can use it for selfish means and things like that, but you know, at the basis, it's a part of our own expression, you know? So in Brazil, you have your capoeira. In other parts of the world, you have similar manifestations. So my personal opinion, I don't feel that it would be like, you know, how can you appropriate something that's a part of your culture, you know, your heritage, your ancestry? So again, me personally, I don't feel that's possible. And today, just now, you know, here's an example of how we are also giving back because we have the opportunity and should do so.
Go ahead, Vasant.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I agree in part with Malandro, but I also think that that's one of the beautiful things about capoeira and about our abilities to walk the path in capoeira the way that we've chosen to. Not everybody makes this choice, but for the majority of us who are here, we are sitting at the feet of our guides, our living ancestors in this tradition. We may not even live the same place that our mestres live or where our teachers live, but we still seek guidance from them. Even if it's not our direct mestre, we're still in touch with our elders. And like folks have said, this is a manifestation of that. This is an inherent aspect of the way that capoeira is practiced, or the way that we at least feel that capoeira should be practiced. There are folks who don't, but I feel that they're in the minority. And so as those of us who really see ourselves as part of a lineage, continuation, and that doesn't necessarily even mean a specific group, but it means that you are feeling that and holding that responsibility towards those who taught you, and making sure to give back, be it paying for your classes, be it letting people know about demos and events, be it talking about the plight of Africans in Brazil. That I think is what keeps this from being appropriation. Appropriation is bandied about very lightly nowadays within the cancel culture, and I think we also have to be very careful of that, because folks are called out for having dreadlocks when they are running. They might not be Black people, but they're running programs, arts programs for Black children in the inner city, and so part of that appropriation is when you take for yourself and don't give back, don't give the respect, don't give the recognition that this is not something that you invented, but this is something that you have gained from people who've gone before you. So it's really important to understand the definition of appropriation. And I know Contramestre Onda had her hand up before I undid my mute, so I'm gonna throw it to her.
Thank you. Every time I went to Brazil, people argued that I was not Honduran or American, but that I was Brazilian. And that if I wasn't, then my grandmother was, or my grandfather was. I say that to start this off because of the embracing that I felt from the Black capoeiristas that I would meet in Brazil. There was this connection that I cannot describe for anybody that doesn't already know. And it doesn't just exist between Blacks in Brazil and Blacks in the US, but when I go to Honduras and I'm with my cousins and I'm hanging out with other Black people there, the only difference I can find is language. The food is similar. When it's time to dance, that feels similar. The way we greet our elders feels similar. Last year was the year of the return for African descendants in the United States to go back to the continent of Africa. Specifically, Ghana was holding events, and the people were saying, "Come home." Even right now, I saw a post from, I don't know who this woman was, but some influencer, I guess, from Ghana saying, "I see how they're treating you, my people," she said, "in the United States right now, come home." I've traveled a lot, and anywhere that I've encountered people that identify as Black, there's an automatic, what's up? There's something there. People that want to deny it are the ones that don't share in that experience and can't understand it. And so they want to say, "No, you're making things up. That doesn't exist," but it's there. I recently did African Ancestry DNA because I did all the other ones, just because I have this hole, much like an adopted person would have, who doesn't know who their parents were. Like, I want to know who my family is that I've been detached from. And everything just gave big blobs of, you know, places around Africa. And when I did the African ancestry, it connected me to Bioko Island and the Bubi people. That's Equatorial Guinea. And I just laughed and I kind of cried at the same time, because this is an island of people, and my direct family, where I know the lineage is from Rotan and the coastal areas of Honduras and Central America. And so I'm tripping out because the Spanish and the Portuguese were inhabiting Bioko Island. So the people there speak Spanish and Portuguese. I'm like, So either way, I'm speaking Spanish and Portuguese. In Bioko, they're still speaking Spanish and Portuguese. They eat fried plantain and fried fish and rice with beans, the same thing that we eat in Honduras. I feel connected. The same way as when I went to Brazil, they made feijoada. I grew up in New Orleans. I'm like, this red beans and rice. Y'all just add a little bit more meat to it. You know what I mean? There's this connection. And I'll stop there, because I think you guys get my point.
I'm going to go to Amazonas. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, very quickly. I each time each presenter, you know, spoke, I wanted to say, yes, that too. Yes, drop the mic. But then the next story, I concur with that also. So I want to take the same question, but flip this other experience too. I've had those experiences. But the same way, I remember the first Brazilian who came into the academy after Messi was gone. And, you know, treat him like any other student. You don't know, you don't know. You need to learn, you need to learn. And the same way how we have culture that are the same, about whether it's from food, medicine, greetings, you know, how to say farewell onto your next life and things of those natures. But it's the same way how I had to kind of co-sign for some lighter skinned Brazilians when they came. And I said to, again, some of the brothers and the sisters that were here from America that don't know their DNA, you know, their ancestry line per se, but some would kind of classify themselves, I don't know, I'm a regular old Negro, I'm from America. And had to slow them down, like, looky here, in terms of DNA, if you do your research, just because they are melanin deficient, doesn't mean they're not African. And they're not in that same struggle also. They may be approached differently on the street at times. Yes, I agree. We'll talk about that later, sorry. But we have to understand in terms of DNA and culture expression, they might be more African than you if you don't know your own story. So appropriation, I think that's, you know, along the impossible lines as well. But those with the other presenters according with my story as well is why I would say that's not something that we do.
We're going to move on to the second question because we are running out of time. The second question is, can you speak about the transformation that Capoeira has caused in your life? Dare I say the evolution that Capoeira has caused in your life? I'm going to come to Sarara first and then Army.
Big question. It's, you know, it's been so many years that it's been a part of my life, and I found Capoeira when I had a difficult time understanding myself. You know, I'm born to a very dark father and a very light mother, and that has different challenges here. You know, sometimes feeling unaccepted on both sides, depending on the shade, you know. I spent time as a high schooler in South Dakota, like the land of lots and lots of white people. And that's when I started to lash out and become mad because I was getting bombarded with the way that or who I was, or that's where I learned the N-word for the first time, you know, like it was difficult for me to feel unaccepted. And so I started lashing out and being young and crazy, and Capoeira saved my life. It gave me direction. I evolved as a person. I began to understand more about my roots. I started to get interested in where I came from and who I was. So it shaped me just like parents do. You know, Capoeira is my mom, Capoeira is my dad, Capoeira is my cousin, Capoeira is my sister. It's been able to shape me as a person. It's made me a better mother, a better community leader. I'm able to, you know, have a voice, have a platform. So as far as evolution is concerned, you know, I have rolled into the person that I am because of Capoeira, through it as a vehicle for my life path. And it hasn't been easy on either side, you know. And then after all of this time, to be able to have this panel of people together, it really gives me some perspective on what all those years were building, you know. And like, it's kind of like you almost forgot that that's what you were doing this entire time. And I feel like we've been building this, and now we get to a point where we can make a difference, where we can talk, communicate together, guide our students. And it really gives me the perspective like, wow, this is a lot bigger than I remembered. You know, as you go through your day as a capoeirista, it's like every day, but at some point, shit hits the fan and you're like, oh, that's right. That's what I've been doing this whole time, is creating a place where I can be me, where I can be heard. It's the first place where I've been able to be myself. And I'm thankful for all of you.
Thank you. Omi?
Yes, a lot of you guys, capoeira for me is a way of life. How would I say? Because I've started capoeira as a kid, especially in this country when there was only about 4 or 5 masters in the whole country. So it's like also Sarah said, it was like a community. At that time, everyone went to everyone's event because there was only about 5 or 6 people in the whole country teaching capoeira. So I had that inspiration in seeing people coming together with all the different personalities. And also it opened many doors for me to, how would I say, travel, to learn from different cultures, and how would I say, connect the dots. Sometimes we know the history, but if you don't actually are pushed into, sometimes like the message say, tem que jogar você no fogo. Like I have to push you in there so you actually can really get it. So going into different cultures and seeing the different connections and the similarities, because sometimes we just see the differences and sometimes we need to see the similarities. And this is what is important about it. They may be different, but at the end of the day, we're all here to do something and to lift each other. And that's why I do capoeira, and that's my personal reason. And this is what I want to share. And that's why I'm here today. And a lot of you guys have many stories from when I was a kid, but that has passed and I'm an adult now, and it's time to make things go forward. Thank you, and I
Omi
hope that
said he's grown. All right. Cocada, bye.
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
The question is, can you speak about the relationship that capoeira has played in your transformation or evolution as a person?
So I come from a very big family. I'm number 6 of 7 siblings, 5 brothers and 1 sister. 2 of my brothers passed away. One of them had cerebral palsy and the other one committed suicide. So before my brother that had cerebral palsy, he was my little brother, I had a lot of responsibility. I had to take care of him after school. I had to help throughout the house, and in ways that a little kid should be free and be able to be a child, I had to do a lot of things to help him. So when he passed away, years went by, and my brother, who is a capoeirista as well, he was doing a show with Mestre Amen. And that was the first time I saw capoeira in a show called Do Brasil in Tempe, Arizona. So I saw that and I was like, oh my God, I am capoeira. Like, I didn't say that, but I was like so drawn to it. I was so attracted to it. I was like, I could see what was going on and I was like, oh my God, yes. You know, the colors, the music, the acrobatics, the exchange, all of that, you know. And it was only until my brother passed away that I was able to actually be a kid. And so when I found, when I was actually starting to really train capoeira, I was 15 years old. And you know, we even now as becoming a mother, like I am becoming a mother, you know, I'm earning my stripes every day with my child. And, you know, when you start capoeira, you are starting to become this person. I always say at some point, you know, I may have an American passport, but I have a Brazilian heart, you know, like I can feel it in my spirit. I can feel it in my soul. And so those, all of the exchanges, all of the traveling, all of the opportunities that I've had have helped me develop into a better person, helped me be more compassionate, helps me be more understanding, helps me have a broader perspective of everybody has a different life, a different role. Everybody's family household is different. Everybody's way of being in the world is different. And even with exchanging with other people as being a teacher and working with like thousands of children, you know, we teach so many children on our journey through the ranks. We teach, I've worked in preschools, I've worked in middle schools, I've worked in high schools, I've worked in universities, you know, teaching capoeira, spreading the knowledge. All of those things have helped form who I am, as well as the friendships that I've made with the people on this panel. The people on this panel I've known for an extremely long time. Now I have a new relationship with Professora Amazonas, you know. I've only met her, you know, this last couple of years, really. So the entire journey of capoeira is something that is like slowly molding me, you know. And now I'm taking even more bigger steps to enjoy samba, you know. Now I want to go to Brazil and dance in the samba drum, you know what I mean? Like I could go on and on and on, but I'm gonna stop right there.
Okay. The next question is about the relationship between capoeira, political discourse, and justice. Should there be a relationship between capoeira and social justice issues and or movements? And if a person were to say to you that they teach capoeira without politics, what would you say? Go ahead, Vasiju.
I would start by refuting the question. I would extract the word should, because there's just the fact, the historical fact that capoeira is part of a justice and liberation struggle. Whether a person decides to practice it in that way, whether a person even has the understanding or tools to take those the stories that we sing about daily, every single roda, and put those into action, you know, that's another question. But in the case that a person feels that their capoeira should not contain a political or a justice aspect, my opinion is that is a disconnect. That is a disconnect between that practice and the historical factuality of, is that a word, factuality? The historical fact of what capoeira is. So we're all free to do what we want, but you know, where I stand in capoeira is that it is part of a larger movement for equity and equality, for liberation, for all people who participate in it, and all people who are in the communities of those of us who participated in it, in the nations of these people across the globe. A friend of mine who does not do capoeira, but who is in Indonesia, who knows me through capoeiristas there, having seen this and having been you know, in my feed looking at what's happening in the US, took a second and was like, wow, the struggle that Black folks are having around the world is crazy, and just started doing some Googling and noticed, and I posted this to our chat group, noticed that currently right now in Mestitabora, this I think would interest you, right now in Papua New Guinea, the Indonesian government is stealing land from and massacring African Indonesians. And so this person, who again is not African, is not even Afro-Indonesian, but knows me through other capoeiristas in Indonesia, has then taken it upon herself to start telling people this story and start notifying her friends groups and other friends groups that this is a cause that people can actually step to if they're living in Asia, living in the region. Maybe they don't have a way to affect the Black Lives movement in the United States, but they have a way to affect the Black Lives movements for them in Indonesia. So again, this is the power that we have. Even just being in this space and speaking our minds and speaking out. So to willfully disconnect from that, to me, again, I'll just say that it's a disconnect. You know, I don't want to place a judgment on it because people may have their reasons. Lack of understanding, lack of vision, lack of ability. So I'm not going to judge that. But I feel and I will stand by the fact that that is a disconnect. Done.
Go ahead, Onda.
These days, I see everything through the lens of an acupuncturist. I can't help it. And so everything is about the way that our one body works. I see our world as one body, right? So if I'm a cell in a body and I'm saying, you know, I got oxygen, make sure my homies around me got oxygen. I hear y'all complaining that you're not getting oxygen, but that's not my concern. I'm just worried about right here. The other parts of the body that are not getting oxygen are going to slowly die. And then every part beyond that is going to begin to die. And eventually, even those few cells that are getting oxygen are going to die. The same if there's a viral invasion, the same if there's an infection. What happens to one part eventually is going to spread to the rest. So your social justice activism, there's a guy who just made a comment on an acupuncture feed that said, I'm just going to make sure I'm not racist. I'm not a racist, and I'm not racist in my practice. And I said, that's not enough. It's not enough to just not be racist. It's not enough to just know that you are socially conscious. You have to express that wherever you go, in the same way that a parent has to not just teach their child, but address other children that they see, you know, behaving in a way that's not helpful. You have to speak up. So the social justice piece in Capoeira is important because it should be happening everywhere. If you come across something that needs to be addressed, if you're on a bus, if you're at church, if you're sitting at the table with your family, you need to speak up.
Were you saying go ahead to me, Bambu? Okay. What great points. So I don't want to just repeat the same things that were already said. I feel like everybody has a different way of practicing capoeira. It's not my place to tell you exactly how you need to do this. You're going to do whatever makes you happiest in your life. But I feel like a lot of people in this group here have probably been doing this for a number of years. What keeps you doing an activity? Is it just purely the movement? My relationship, as I'm sure everybody's relationship to capoeira, is constantly changing. And for me, if it was just about doing flips or just about how many people I can give a hashtera or fighting, I think I would have stopped a long time ago. So for me to say, okay, the first day that you come into capoeira class, you got to come and do this march and you got to do this. I don't know if people are ready for that. Just like they're not ready for every single aspect of capoeira. You don't teach somebody a chisora on the first day when they come in. You teach them jinga. You teach them how to navigate through this slowly. Social justice to me is even without even myself being aware of it, is a part, it's ingrained in capoeira. If it is like Versace was talking about, if it's taken away, I can't tell you, you have to do this. But if it's taken away, it's just movements, you know? And if that's how you choose to navigate, I think it's gonna be a much shorter lifespan in the art form. But social justice also doesn't have to be the same thing for every single person, you know? It doesn't mean that it has to be, you have to do this exact thing, that this, maybe Bamboo is really good at this one part, and Versace and Onda is really good at this other part. You know, we have so many different ways of attacking some of our problems that we're going through. And I think with this, just within this chat, there's 100 people here and there's a couple hundred people watching on Facebook. All of us have different ways where we can come up with solutions and answers to fighting the injustices that we're experiencing in our lives. So I agree with what everybody is saying, but I feel like it's just going to really limit the time that you'd even want to do it. If you want to have a lifespan in an art form, if we started off because of most of us probably started off because of the physical aspect. But as we grow older and we change, what's keeping us? It's the community, it's the music, it's the history, it's all these different aspects. Otherwise, you can just go do, I'm not throwing no shade, but like, you can just go do Muay Thai. Like, I love Muay Thai, but you're not gonna be doing Muay Thai for 50 years. Your body is just gonna, I'm sure there's some people who are doing that, but I think you understand the point that I'm trying to make.
Amazonas, I saw that your mic was off. Let me ask the next question and you can blend it into this one. All right. So knowing that that people come to capoeira for different reasons, with different levels of consciousness, what environment does the capoeira teacher need to create in order to facilitate growth for everyone?
Good question. Am I off mute? Yes, I'm off mute. So to lead to I'll take the baton from Muito, where he said, talking about everybody's good at different things also. The environment you create is to allow people to flourish what they're good at and choose some things where they're not as strong at. I didn't say they're weak, but they're not as strong. So it's perspective. So I challenge you to think. So one of my social justice things that I do with children, no, they're not coming out marching with me anywhere, not necessarily right, that I'm not comfortable with that. Take your kids, that's your business. I am not comfortable with that. They do go and they help me to feed the less fortunate at the train stations. They do those things. I show them money on other countries that have Black faces that look like them. Or the students that don't look like me know that there's an appreciation of value of people who have done marvelous things throughout the world and have been placed on money. Even though in America, we have a lot of slave owners on our money and things like that, just for fun, just trying to put it all in there. But this perspective is what are you aware of? And what are you respecting? Why is it that I can say I would not wear a Redskins jersey? Because it's disrespectful, period. I'm not Redskin. I have Native blood, Native American blood as well, but I would not use such things as that. So yes, we do have a culture of let's make fun of the things that make us uncomfortable sometimes and all times. And that's why we call, yeah, that's Big Joe, because Big Joe is big. So we have these concepts, but there's many things you can do to lead us into social justice, lead us into being the leaders that we can be, to create room, to facilitate relationships among other leaders or into people who have resources or need these resources, making connections. That's what we need to work on doing. Through social justice, which can be synonymous with moving forward as a community, because we need to do that as one body. So I'm taking part, I was listening, I think I'm just looking, I'm not just looks, y'all, I'm paying attention. So that's what I'm at though, fast.
we're talking about creating what type of environment for growth, right? Is it equal to raising a baby, making a nurturing space where they can feel comfortable, and then making them feel uncomfortable so that they can learn the next step. It's about those awkward moments where you feel like you're getting somewhere, and then your mestre puts you right back down. It's like, not quite. It's like those ladder steps where you get to step up little by little. And it kind of blends with the social justice in the sense that, for me, you create a safe space, you be a good leader, and then you reach out in the community and say, let's be culturally aware. Let's bring Black people to this area, and let's dance together, and let's see the smiles it puts on everybody's faces. Let's talk about these things, but make it like a party. So it's like educating them secretly, if you will. It's not shoving in their face, like Muito said, they're not always ready. But in this way, it's more of like a home environment where someone can feel like they have space to be themselves and to grow. And as teachers, each student that we have, that's a challenge for us. We learn more about ourselves and about how to create space for other people. So I'm able to do more work in the community because I have challenging students who are like, challenge me as a teacher and as a person, who is, I have a unique opportunity. I'm a little bit lighter in the sense where I can kind of sneak in and get accepted here and there and still, make it work. We all are working with what we're working with, and creating a nurturing space where people can feel confident and feel comfortable. And it's such a great thing when you start to blend all your kid work into that too, because you see the parents learning, you see the parents showing up. We just did a huge event, and it's like one of the biggest cultural events that we have here in the North Bay. We're not as active as you guys are down there in the Bay or on the East Coast. And so it matters, the things that we do annually, it matters, and the parents see it and the kids see it, and they grow up with a little bit more perspective. So you can't just shove it all in their face all at once, like Muito was talking about. But we do have, Capoeira is kind of our sneaky way to be able to infuse it into the education of our students. And for me, that's been the best way that I can get some awareness built around it.
Go ahead, Omi.
Like everyone was saying, I'm not gonna repeat everything, but a safe space, but also we're forgetting, we also want to create a space that is respectful for everyone. This is something that after doing a lot of work, there's a give and take, and sometimes as a teacher, we also have to, yes, we learn from my students, but also there's a certain time that we also have to require, not a required demand. Some people would like to say demand, but you don't demand that respect. You get that respect from working with the people and learning. And I have a lot of students, I will put that every day I have to hit my head and be like, I don't know how to get through this person. And then sit down and try to figure out a way how to get through this person. Because every student or every atmosphere, unfortunately, we say it is the same, but it's not. You go into one school, you don't teach the same way that you teach in one school, you teach in another school, because if you know your demographics, there's certain things that you have to focus more on than other schools. For example, a school may have more funding in some aspects that another school may not have, or lack of things. So how we address it, yes, is going to be a safe and respectful space, but we also need to, it's like capoeira. We don't go into a capoeira game and play the same game every time we play with someone. No, even the same people that even us, all of us, we know we go into the hut and it's never the same game. So that's how I see it. And also we need to, in my opinion, we lead by example. And by example is not always the best way. as in, yes, we are human, we do make mistakes. And that's why we also have our students to point it out. I think it should go like this. And that's why I said it's a flexible and adaptability. Is that the right word? And I'll leave it like that. Muito.
I just want to add something real quick. I think it's also just important to recognize that as teachers and as leaders, we need to make decisions that are also going to make people uncomfortable and talk about things, whether it be, you know, this art form comes from a different time and certain things need to change. And not everybody's going to agree with that, whether it be certain songs that we sing or, you know, if a lot of things in capoeira are created in the moment. So if there's a friend group of people from a similar culture or a similar same background, and we create a song that makes sense in our group, in our small group, and then somebody from another group hears that and like, oh, I like that song, I'm gonna go sing that song somewhere else. We're like, oh, you're kind of taking it out of context, you know? Or certain songs that might be have a negative connotation towards a certain group of people. I mean, I think there's a difference between carrying a history through music and then whether it's talking negatively about women or, so I think it's our job as leaders to make these decisions to move forward, whether we take out certain songs and also having these difficult conversations, like why are people singing a song about slavery and we're not doing anything if something is happening to Black people in different parts of the world. You know, if we have no opinion about it, but we can go over there, we can go back to the hall and be like, oh yeah, you know, let me sing this song and be happy. You know, so I think it's important to have that safe space, but in that safe space, we have to have difficult conversations. That's gonna kind of open people's minds and really deal with the issues that we're having to face.
Mr. Cho, let me ask the next question and you can blend it into that.
Word.
All right. So in the past few weeks, we've seen white capoeira teachers supporting Black Lives Matter, giving Black people a lot of support. However, as recently as this week, we've seen white capoeira teachers make some dismal missteps, while others have remained publicly silent around the killing of Black people. What are your thoughts about that? And if you feel like sharing, how have you been handling that ebb and flow?
Word. Okay. Well, again, I've been looking at the stream and, there's some, definitely people are picking off of the ideas of brave spaces rather than safe spaces. And I agree. Our job is not to make people feel comfortable. People need to feel uncomfortable, but to work through it. So safely and yet being challenged. But I think one huge component of it, and a person, TK Dawson, responded about this, we as teachers need to not make the mistake of not listening. In my class, and I'm not saying that this is an example, but this is just what I do. In my class, at the end of class, there's usually 10 minutes to 20 minutes to sometimes even 3 hours where we just sit down and we talk. We talk about the feelings that may have come up in the class. We talk about things about the music, about the lessons, about whatever happened in our daily lives. I'm not a teacher who says, leave your baggage at the door so you can have a class that's separate and disconnected from your daily life. I tell you to bring your baggage into the room so that we can work on it through what we do in the Hada. And I think, listening to our students, asking what they feel, asking what brought them to capoeira even is important. And I think that also leads to, answering Bambu's question about these aspects of silence, as well as people really stepping up. This type of dialogue, be it a larger dialogue or even an individual dialogue between people, may offer people avenues of understanding as to how to proceed, how to be an ally. People sometimes don't really know what the best way is, and because of the way the cancel culture is nowadays, don't want to mess up. And so end up being silent because they're afraid of the possible backlash from trying to do the right thing. Again, back to the example I gave earlier about somebody with dreadlocks. That person posted a whole bunch of great Black Lives Matter information. And then people were hitting them up, well, why you got dreadlocks on? Why are you appropriating? So there are these things that people may step wrong. We have to be a little bit flexible if we have a sense that the person is really coming from a good place. And in the case that a person is not, then that can also be dealt with or even ignored, because in some cases when we deal with it in a way that gives that person a larger platform. But I like to have as much compassion and patience as I can for another person's point of view. Even if that person has a point of view that harms me, there's a reason for that. And if I can understand the reason for that person's actions that may harm me, it may lead back to an intention that aligns with my intention. And if I could show that alignment to that person, if I can say, look, we're both working to the same goal, but if you do it this way, then we can get on the same train instead of having me thrown in front of the train. So I think that's a really big part of it, is again, it goes back to listening and asking the right questions rather than just reacting. Capoeira is about responding properly rather than reacting.
Kokada, could you speak to this as well, please?
Okay. We're in this like culture of internet, and even when people are driving in their cars, they check their Facebook. When they're waiting for things, they're looking at their Instagram, they're scrolling, they're double tapping, they're sharing. Some people are just waiting for things to fade, because they're not, they don't have any relationships worldwide. They don't research anything happening other places. They don't know that Paris is upset about the same thing, a young man dying a few years ago with police on his head. Same thing as George, and they're in an uproar. People don't know about that. People in the Netherlands are dancing and cheering and fighting black. Like everybody in the world is like fighting the same issue for people of color, and like some people don't know that. Like they literally think that it's just something that's happening in Minneapolis. They think that it's something that's just happening in Chicago. They don't know that it's happening everywhere, and people are, it's one incident after another, and nobody is. You don't even know the people that aren't even getting the news support that are dying every day. Black women are being killed by police. Nobody's talking about those women. And they're probably afraid of some type of retaliation. They're probably afraid of like having that difficult conversation within their family or with their peers or with people that they train with in any other arts. And there's an extreme amount of lack of compassion and humanity that I'm seeing in people, that they just don't care. They don't have the ability to care, to be compassionate for what is happening in the world to people of color. And I feel like, if they're not going to go, I can't go protest. I'm a new mom. I have to be with my baby. My mom is in her 70s. I'm not going to put her health at risk. I go get her groceries. I can't do that. I need to be here with you guys and expressing my thoughts and supporting what's going on in other ways, and I have to keep on talking and keep annoying people with the things that I post, and hopefully to strike up a conversation with those people. But I just personally feel that like people are just waiting for things to fade away. They're just like, it'll be fine. It'll be this. Okay, fine. They got what they wanted. The police are arrested. So that's good enough. Things should go back to the way they were, And, we're in a fight right now. We're like, everybody in the world is in a fight right now. They're trying to like shake people and say, hey, these people matter, you should be disgusted. If all lives matter, then the people that are good people, like Breonna Taylor, who was an EMT, an award-winning EMT, she's a good person. Why doesn't her life matter? You know what I mean? Like, people say all lives matter except for the people that died because they were criminals before, so fuck it, they deserve to die. Guy was having a counterfeit dollar bill, sure, he deserves to die, no, so people can't be silent. They can't be silent. They have to say something, and they just have to say something. You have to say something. You can't be quiet. There's no way you could be quiet. There's no way you could be quiet. If this was happening to your sister, if this was happening to your brother, if this was happening to your husband, there's no way you would be quiet. No.
Go ahead, Milan.
Just to piggyback on that, I think also, like for my situation, fortunately, the community that I'm part of here in the Bay Area has been so vocal. People who are not Black, and things like that about supporting. And and I think, yeah, there are some folks, there exist people who have been silent, but I feel like I've been so motivated and so focused on the people who have my back, the people who, like on some protests where there's a front line of white people that are protecting the Black protesters. There was a protest recently where it was like, I was notified like, hey, I don't think this particular protest we're about to do is going to be in direct conflict with the police. So I don't feel that you need to be at this one. And we will go ahead and, your friends, your non-Black friends will go ahead and like take one for the team because we need you. We need, ready and able. There'll be other protests. So we're going to step forward and do that. So it feels really good to feel and see action, because some people will say like, oh, don't worry, I got you. But then to actually see it, is a different feeling of like, you're not just alone, or you're not just with your other Black folks that are saying the same thing over and over again, or feeling the same way over and over again. You have examples of people who are representing for you. And also, sometimes I had to be like, some people who I didn't feel or hear anything from, just like, hey, how come you've been quiet? And have that conversation instead of, hey, because I'm a reserved person in general, and I think a lot. So sometimes I get really emotional. I try to process that because I feel like sometimes when you have an emotional response, you end up regretting it because there's not a lot of thought behind it. It's just, but there's a balance to that. So to ask someone to stand by you, or, hey, why haven't you been vocal? To be able to, like Versace was saying, to like listen to that person, because you don't know necessarily what that person is struggling with themselves, so it's like, oh, I don't know what to do. There's so many things. There's so much views of violence, with the cop pushing the senior citizen down and him hitting his head and bleeding, so people, this type of resistance, this type of movement, not a lot of people, particularly non-Black people, are not used to seeing this in this magnitude. Like every single day, the feed on, the news, it doesn't matter what you're on. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, you see this magnitude of everything that's going on, and it is aggressive. The aggressive resistance, the aggressive police in response. So some people are just like scared, as they should be, but then also some people just don't know what to do. So it's good to have that conversation with people and like, okay, why haven't you spoken up? Okay, I don't know what to do. And then also open up give them the floor for them to approach you and be like, hey, what do you need from me? How can I help you? Because some people, again, would be so adamant about jumping in front and representing for you, or speaking out. But then also sometimes they also forget, like, maybe what they want to say about this injustice might not be beneficial, or what we need them to say at the moment, because you want to pick your battles. You want to be like as efficient as possible. Because I think, yes, we want to be make our voices known, but if it's just random noise, then it's going to die down easy. But if we're organized and say, okay, how can we use this energy? How can we channel this anger? How can we channel this frustration, as efficiently as possible? Then that's how people can pull up. That's how people can represent. But it's good, again, to like have those conversations and understand people are in different situations. Like Kokado was saying, like, she's a parent, so she has a responsibility. She needs to be mentally and physically able to pass on what she needs to pass on to her child and to the next generation. Now, of course, she's going to find, and we support her of different ways that she can help the movement. But just because she may not be there in direct conflict doesn't mean that she's not really ready to pull up, because I guarantee if somebody tries to, pull up on her property, then, it's on a popping note. See, look at no doubt. So I guess just what I want to say at the end is just kind of have that conversation. If you feel some way, just like talk to that person there. And last thing, and I'll quit because I don't want to ramble, but about like certain people posting insensitive things on Facebook. Now there's one incident where everyone, attacked like a swarm of bees, but there was another instance where someone reached out to me, a totally separate person, with their insensitive post, reached out to me and someone wanted to respond. It's like, hey, how do you feel about this? What do you feel I should do? And I was like, you should just talk to that person. And that person reached out, was able to talk to the person over the phone and just educate the person. And then she reached back out to me just like, hey, you know what? She was just kind of misinformed, kind of lost. So I was able to steer her in the right path. And I feel like that's also beneficial than everyone just jumping on, what the hell's wrong with you? Who's your master and what's your title? And like, which we should be ready to do that also, but just when it's absolutely necessary so that we can continue to put our energy where it's most efficient,
We haven't heard from Sarara, Omi, and Onda in a while, so I want to give them an opportunity to step up.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Melandra said, it's about asking those questions. Why are you silent? Just like how we learn in Capoeira that there's a lot of different ways to fight. We have gentle ways to fight. We have playful ways to fight. We have aggressive ways to fight. We have a lot of options in the way that we choose to fight the battle. And I think that just because someone isn't fighting it in the way that you are or the way that you see is the best way, we have to remember that we are a community of different minds, different cultures, different beliefs, different morals, but we all agree on one thing, right? And so it's important that we are compassionate and have space for people to fight in their own terms, in the ways that are mostly, everybody has different resources. Some people can be very silent because we're talking about social media, right? If you don't see someone on social media yelling, then they're silent. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're doing the quiet fight. Maybe they're doing some communal work in other ways. It's hard for me to make those quick judgments over social media. It's been so even confusing for me. I don't have all the answers. I don't exactly know how I feel all the time. I don't exactly know the best way to fight this problem. So I think that's what these conversations are fantastic for, is because it helps guide us all in a way, be like, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't think about that. Or, it's opening our minds to more possibility, more options, more ways to fight the fight, but I don't really feel comfortable, lashing out at people and yelling at them for being silent. I feel like there's way more things that I'd rather do with my time than to, but if someone is silent because they don't know where to go, they don't know which way to approach it, that's a conversation I'm 100% willing to have, and super thankful that they would ask. It's about us asking the right questions, about them asking for help if they need it. It's a combination of things, but there's a lot of different ways fight a fight. And I think that that's important to remember, that we're all going to approach it from different angles.
Kwame, I see your finger on the button.
Yes, we also have to remember it's a process, guys. Even though you may have a conversation with someone, that doesn't mean they're going to get it right away. And we have to learn that even though that they say they may get it, sometimes you have to reiterate it. It's just like when we teach class, you know, sometimes the students say they may get it and they got the concept, but did they actually understand it and get it? That is the point that we're at. Yes, we're at the process of explaining to people, but now is the process of you actually understanding. And that is a process that does not happen in one day, does not happen in 2 days. It's a process. And for everyone's process is different. And we also have to accept that. Just because they're silent, that doesn't mean they're not doing the work. If we actually know the history here, when slavery was abolished, us Black people, we didn't own houses. We didn't have any property. But how did we get through? There was other people that had the same idea, that understood that this is unjust, that needs to be changed, that helped us. They were silent. Some of them was because they didn't want to deal with what would happen, but that doesn't mean they weren't doing the work. So we, like everyone is saying, we have our own way, but we also have to remember it's a process, just like with our own kids. And I think we have to be understanding to a certain point, but then also enough is enough.
Amazonas?
Oh, my bad. You can
No,
be,
finish up.
you can be, I would say, process all of that, but then it comes to a certain time that even though having that conversation with the person multiple times, now it's time to hold that person accountable because you had that conversation, not once, not twice, but multiple times. So some people say, oh, this, but at the end of the day, if you had that conversation and they're getting that process and they still don't get it, now it's time to hold you accountable for it. And if we're doing this art and you know your history, there's certain things that you, for my intention, you can't do, or it's not can't do, it's what you like, we're preaching to the choir. You say do something and then you're being hypocritical. So it's, I would say, lead by example, and how you want to lead by example in this process of talking or dealing with these people or the general. I'm, as you guys know, I'm not a social person. I like to observe and think before I say something, because it's like an arrow. Once you let the arrow go, you cannot get it back. Amazonas.
Wait. Thank you. Great points, everyone. The question is just to get back on point was, say something, don't say something, or I don't know what to say, so wait. This is a basic concept. So why should you say something? If the something is pertaining to you most times, or personal, most times we have an opinion immediately. When it's someone else or a third party that's a little bit further away, we have that luxury of taking time to think about it. So from the perspective of waiting or what exactly to say, does take eloquence, does take the know-how to put some words together. So those who are reaching out to other people and asking for help, that is step one for you. Thank you. And we may not have the answers either, but we can help together to grow. But why it's important to say something, to at the very least, you don't have to use the hashtag of Black Lives Matters or any other thing that you may not have researched to know what it's exactly about. Do your research. But it's important to use your platform, not just as a capoeira teacher, but anyone who has someone who's listening to the words that are coming out of your mouth, to expose that there is an injustice that may not directly affect you. And the reason why I'm asking you to say something is because as a community leader, when I see my young boys leave and I'm worried about you over the weekend. Are you gonna make it? Because I know what neighborhood we're in. And I know you're a good kid, but they can see that what you look like down the block. And they form judgments about you before they even knew how wonderful you are. We have this platform where you guys are interested in hearing what we have to say. May it be good, bad, or indifferent. But I have a responsibility to say some things with an articulate mind and not to lead with emotion, because then that's the angry Black woman, because that's what it was, the package there. I have to package myself so that I can be received well. Because down the block, you just saw the Rasta lady, the this, the that, whatever other things you got. You saw these beads around my neck. Oh, she do this, she do that. Whatever your feelings about. But you never knew how much I loved you just because you are the spirit that's come to me. You didn't get an opportunity to realize that. So getting back to the point why I need you to say something is because somebody could have hurt me and they didn't know how much I love you. And the things that I fight for you. Not just for me, because I will be somebody's ancestor. And when they speak about me, hopefully they'll say that I did something well with my dash, my time. And the platform that I have, may it be big, small, or indifferent, the time that I have is that I'm asking you to say there isn't something I need y'all to think about, that these people are dying not from medical conditions, but from an unjust system that is systematically, repetitively disappropriating the ability for people to thrive and have the same dream that you've judged them for based on what they look like. So we ask you to stand together with us, because sometimes I don't have the words to say. So I need you to figure that out. Because when I feel like being emotional, I have to sit and wait and fold my hands and rock and hum and everything else like that. Because if I just lash out, what are you gonna say then? I speak 5 languages and sometimes I don't have the words. Every summer, I'm like, are they gonna make it? Yes, no funeral. So when I talk to my people in Indonesia, I talk to my people in Trinidad, I talk to my people here, there, everywhere, and I'm like, yeah, we need help too. So I can look in your face and say, look, I don't have the answers. I know you're struggling. I see your struggle. I can empathize. I have compassion. I don't know where all those, you guys remember the story, where all those Black girls disappeared to? We're not talking about that. But if I say that, then, oh, that's affecting you, Amazonas. No, but I'm talking about everything that's injustice that I can, so that we can move forward together. So you know that I'm an ally. I need you to be my ally. And for the people who are reaching out and saying, I'm not sure how to say this and I need your help. But I don't even really know why I technically have to call some of you guys. And I'm not saying you guys like us, but why I have to call to say I'm on your side. Sometimes I need to hear that. Sometimes I need encouragement too. I don't want to look across and wonder sometimes. So tell me that you love me. Say that, because I need to hear it. But at the same token, the reason why you feel like you don't know why you have to call is because you just got a glimpse of what it's like for me to have to put myself in a box to make sure I'm presentable. I got dressed up for y'all today. I got on the blazer, y'all. I got dressed up and I packaged myself well so that I could be presentable, so I can be heard, so that the voices of people that might look like me and that are people that are calling me from other people's academies, that they know that their teachers can't necessarily identify with their particular walk. This is why we need your help. Because I need to fight this way. I may not be on that front line near the cops, by the cops, or whatever case may be. This is why we need you to speak. This is my point of view. Say something, please.
We're approaching the 1.5-hour mark. And I'm gonna try to connect what Amazonas just said with some comments and questions that are happening in the chat. One of the questions is about, Amazonas just spoke so passionately about, the safety in expressing anger as a Black person, right? being raw as a Black person. Can you guys speak about how race and gender have played a role in your capoeira, right? There's some try to push the narrative that Brazil, for example, is this racial harmony, right? And in capoeira, some similar ideas are there. So can you speak about how race and gender have impacted how you come to capoeira, how you come to the roda?
Did you call someone out? Am I still on call?
I didn't call anybody out. Anybody can go on this, ready to go.
I need a moment. Emotional woman over here.
Take it.
I'm feeling it with you, Professora Amazonas. Like, I put some comments in the chat just because I needed to express. I don't know that I've felt too much within capoeira issues around my race, but absolutely as a woman. What immediately pops to mind is an occasion, I think I was in Recife and there was this group there, and you know, I'm a woman, but I'm also a small woman to some people. I think I'm big, but I remember I caught this guy really good. I kicked him and he was kind of turned, so my martello came across his chest and he was not happy and he kept kicking at my legs trying to get me, but you know, I moved. And so when he couldn't get me clean, the typical thing, and this, I have to watch myself because I get irritated every time I see a man do this in the roda with a woman. I just witnessed it in New York with my sister, Professora Amazonas. You can't get me clean, then you're gonna take advantage of my size. So I got this guy, he couldn't get me. So he grabbed, I think I was gonna do Melo de Compasso. He grabbed my arm and leg on the same time, on the same side, and tried to like swing me, right? So he picked me up to throw me. And I'm in the air and I'm pissed off, right? But I landed, I think I did like a Kata Jahin or something as I was coming out. I rolled out and got up, and then he was satisfied because he slung me, so he wanted to shake my hand. But I was pissed. I was like, I don't know, 21, 22 at this time. So, you know, I didn't have that ability to calm myself. So when I took his hand and I pulled up and elbowed him in the chest, and he got even more mad. And so he looked like he was gonna, you know, attack me again, and somebody kind of stepped in. And there's been multiple occasions like that where I've done movements in the same way that any capoeirista would, but the guy that I'm playing with is pissed clearly by their facial expression and by their bodily response that I had the nerve, I guess, you know, to use force in landing my attack. And I'm like, we playing, you know, I just saw you kick somebody before I bought the game. What you mad for? So there's that dynamic that I wish would be addressed more often. And unfortunately, when I have brought it up, what I've heard are different variations of, you know, well, you got to kind of remember your place, or, you know, you got to kind of remember what body you're in and be careful how you approach different opponents. And I've never heard that said to men, no matter how small, you know, how thin, big, I've never heard that at all. So that is an experience that I've had on multiple occasions that is very frustrating. And I wish could be addressed, because that's also a social justice issue, right? And while I do recognize that I am in a certain body and you know, I do want to comport myself in a certain way as a lady, if we in the hall of fighting, you know, then let's play fair. If we out of weight class, then don't punch me in my face. I ain't saying that, but you know, let's play fair. If I get you clean, then you get me clean.
Go ahead, Muito.
I'm gonna use my power as a mestre to ask my mestre I think he has a comment he wants to make, right? Because we were just talking about, is that true, Master? You have your hand up? Is that what's going on?
Hello, can you hear me? Yes? Well, yes, I do a very, it's not a comment. It's really, I just really want to congratulate every single one of you for taking action. Because being a Black man, come from Bahia, from the slums, and hear all the stories, all the things that's happening today, you know, all the pain, all the struggle that we're going through, you know, for me, it's sort of like bringing back memories that I think is very painful. And Contramestra Onda, you know, I'm your godfather, and I know you're so powerful. And if someone's really trying to grab and slam me, because, you know, in Capoeira, if you really have the knowledge, you don't need to grab anyone. Everything should be, you know, a dialogue. And the person that have the best vocabulary will gonna win that game. I think for me, you won that game, you know, and I just, again, you know, and it's so hard in Capoeira because there's no weight or divisions that you can say, okay, you can gonna play with someone that's gonna be this weight or this, you know, side or this tall. You know, you're gonna have to play with people, all kinds, you know, weight and sides and backgrounds. So, and that's what makes Capoeira so challenging, because you do have to adjust all the time, like we're adjusting right now. You know, with this pandemic, with racism, and with brutality, you know, all this stuff going on, I think we are playing Capoeira in a whole different way. And as a mastery, someone that I think, for me, I consider myself a beginner, always a beginner. And I think right now, capoeiristas in general should be using their voice to do exactly the things that we are doing today. Really, it's really to empowering people, at the same time be accountable. You know, if you have the power to speak out and make this a better place, you know, we should all be join forces together, regardless if you're Black or not. I think we all have responsibilities to, you know, to make whatever's happening right now, you know, go away, because it's been too long. You know, I was reading a book early today, you know, you go back to, you know, slavery time, and then you forward to one, and we are still going through similar struggles, maybe even worse, because now the slave master, they can have, you know, official, you know, uniform. They can be judges, they can be cops, you know, they can be politicians, you know, so they're more organized. So we do need to get organized and elect the right people so they can represent us as well. So I think we should use our power to really make change. So I just want to put this out there, you know, thanks for listening. And I don't want to just, you know, take over anything. So I'm humbly asking for all of you, keep doing the work and keep doing, you know, all the things that you do, because it's gonna make a big difference. It is making a big difference. Axé, galera. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add real quick. Thank you, Mestre. I mean, I felt like it was just very important to have the Black experience from Brazil, and somebody who's come here, who was the first person. I mean, look, I'm gonna big up him, not just because he's my Mestre, but I also know some of his history. You know, being the first Black Mestre, correct me if I'm wrong, in Southern California, started the work by himself when there was not a lot of support, like no support for him, experiencing racism in Capoeira, you know, the art form that he brought, that he was coming here to do. And I feel like he played a major role in changing in that in the U.S. As to the question, I feel like, you know, we all have our biases, y'all. Nobody, you know, everybody makes judgment. I think what would be helpful is if we could find ways to check our judgments. You know, every time somebody shows up to a Hada, whether you see the, you know, you see this one person, you're gonna, like Professor Amazonas was saying, she had to package herself today. She feels like she has to package herself in a way for people to accept her, you know, because there's already this bias that she's gonna receive as being a Black woman with locks and et cetera, et cetera. When we go to a Hada, when you show up, you know, you see somebody, you're already gonna be like, this person is that because of the way they look, or, and so on and so on. So I think, you know, personally, I try not to be too concerned with how everybody, it's been a long process, because everybody's gonna have their own beliefs about me. And at the end of the day, it's none of my business. You know, I can't go around being so worried about how everybody views me until it starts to hurt my friends or my family or myself, maybe physically or in a different way. But if it's just thoughts, I know I've experienced racism on different levels, whether it be inside Capoeira or outside. But I feel like it has a lot to do with checking our own biases that we have, and that everybody here has, Black, white, or anything.
Professor Chill, I see you. Let me ask the last question, and then you can blend it into that. And thank you, Mr. Amen, for changing the Hada right now so that we can bring this to a close. So this question is, you know, what are your hopes for the Capoeira movement, Capoeira now and after this pandemic? And we'll close on that question. And everybody can respond. Whoever's ready can go and can call the next person in.
Bon. So just, you know, I, especially what Muito said about, again, looking at ourselves, I really believe strongly in calling in above calling out. And so with regards to that, the previous question, you know, I know that, you know, as a man, I've had blind spots in Capoeira. I'm very grateful to a lot of the women who are present here, some people who are in the chat, who have led me to do a lot of the work that I'm doing now, be it with men's groups, be it just on myself and recognizing where I've misstepped. You know, one of the blind spots is I'm not the hugest dude out there, but I am big. And, you know, it's always a matter of perception. And it's not something that's always been in my consciousness. And yet I've always understood that as a capoeirista, I'm looking to use my timing and my technique rather than my strength or my speed or my weight to win whatever gambit is happening in the game. But it really struck the clearest. I was at Sarara's event up at that campsite years ago, and I was playing with Mestra Suhizu. She's an elder mestra and a small woman. And we were playing, and we played for maybe 40 minutes. And it was a wonderful series of games. We were like kind of over by the kitchen, like on that deck there. Nobody else was there, and we were just, again, playing. She was knocking me around, and I was just really trying to keep those ideas of not using speed, not using weight. But I didn't realize what it meant for her. And then afterwards, she told me that the reason she asked me to play over there was because she had tried to get in some other games, and a lot of, again, bigger people were just, you know, sitting on people, and she didn't feel comfortable. And she saw me, somebody who knew her, and thought that she would risk it with me because she felt like she could talk to me if something went wrong. But that she was grateful that in every aspect of the game that we played, that I was playing the game. If I was got, she didn't have to hit me with a sledgehammer for me to acknowledge it. If I was over her or could do something to her, then I did it in the time.
Hey, I'm sorry, Julian, could you mute your mic, please?
You can mute him.
I can't. I don't have.
Thank you. Yeah, that again, she was grateful that I was not using my size, using my weight, but it's never something that I understood personally how much it affected her. This is a mastodon. She was sitting way away from the hada, so that because she didn't feel like she had a place there, because so many people would just use their weight, would just step out of the game, the intent of capoeira, the técnica, in order to make themselves feel good at her expense, rather than allowing her to teach the lessons that she can teach as an extremely experienced capoeirista. So again, there's so many blind spots that we have to check ourselves on, as men, or as non-white capoeiristas, or as teachers, who've been in this game for 20, 30 some odd years, and forgetting what it's like to be a beginner. So these are all things that we have to check ourselves on, and that allows us to have that relevancy in the future, I think. Capoeira is transformative, and it itself is transforming. We are not necessarily having the same pitched battles in the streets that we've heard about in Brazil. Although today we are having some things that are similar, but I can't be out in the front lines. I'm a mental health professional. I work with children. I work with people with developmental issues. I have to pass every single background check that pops up every 2 weeks that I have to take, right? So there are levels to this. I have been introduced to the work of Roberto Freire in somaterapia, and was able to do a lot of research around him, around Augusto Boal's work, and develop my own modality called the Warrior Class, which is based on the tenets of capoeira movement, art, and how it resonates with the subconscious, how it allows us to deal with the ailments of the soul, both as individuals and as community. Capoeira is a healing art. Capoeira is an art that allows us, what we're doing right here, sitting in our chairs, looking at the computer screens, is definitively capoeira. And so understanding that, and understanding that as we move forward into the future, we have relevancy, as long as we are able to be flexible in the way that we approach it. Capoeira is a set of tenets that then grow as the people who do it grow, that we can apply. So I think as we're applying those tenets into the future, we maintain that relevancy. I remember when Messi Jamaica, a good friend of mine, stopped doing flips. He didn't really stop, but he said he was going to stop. But then I saw so much of his work in capoeira grow because he started concentrating on other things. And that's what we can do. I see Muito raising his hand. I'm going to shut up because I can talk forever.
I think you have great points. I just want to make sure everybody gets a chance to answer.
All right, panelists, it's up to you.
Okay, cool. Can you repeat the question one more time, just so I get all the...
The question is, what are your hopes for capoeira right now and moving forward?
Cool. So my personal hope for capoeira is to strengthen the ability for everyone to listen to one another, even if there's especially if there's disagreements or difference of opinions. What I also would like is to see it, to any opportunity to hold up and give acknowledgement to the ancestors of this art form, particularly of African descent, because there's been so much effort to degrade, to devalue, to make money off of, to gentrify every aspect of Black culture. So if we're talking about slang, if we're talking about dancing, if we're talking about martial arts, if we're talking about any aspect of African culture, it's either the ones who are not Black are making the most money off of it, or if Black people are doing it, then it's somehow the Black version of something that already exists. So I would hope that for every time the culture has been degraded or taken, that people would hold it up and show its value in every aspect. So if you're doing events, if you're doing batizados, of course you want to invite the usual folks that's in your circle, but also bring in historians, bring in people who can like transmit not just the culture from Brazil in particular, but then people who can transmit the culture from its roots, from its African roots. Be mindful of like the songs that you sing. And then also discussions outside of the hall, you know, outside of class, to just be mindful and take every single opportunity to at least at minimum balance out all of the stealing and the appropriation of every aspect of that are expressions of the African diaspora. So that's what I try to do for myself. And that's what I would like to see also continue to happen, particularly for the people who have the least amount of Black students, because, you know, the people who already understand the Black experience, we're going to do that regardless, because we're just expressing ourselves. You know, once we become knowledgeable of like our connections, we're going to do that naturally. You know, being up Mestre, muito tempo em Mestre a mim, every event, you know, they have the Blackest bateria, you know, on the West Coast. And then also the performances are very strong in their African expression, regardless if there's a high number of Black students or not. You already feel the appreciation. So that's what I would hope to continue to do for myself. Because again, like Kokada was saying, that you have to be the change you want to seek, and also invite and encourage other people, and also to a certain degree demand, you know, other people do the same. Because if it doesn't, again, it's just going to be taken from and appropriated.
Hello. Also, what I would like to see in Capoeira is all of us teachers hold ourselves accountable. Just be accountable for all the things, and also that community, or it's, for me, I see Capoeira as you raising a kid. One day you see a kid, the kid is this small. The next day you see it's growing, and it's always evolving. But we also as teachers have to hold ourselves accountable of that evolution, because sometimes we may go to one side and might not talk about the other side. So it has to be a balance as in, I would say, like the old proverb, to raise a child takes a community. And I think we need to be more of a community instead of looking at the differences so much, and look at the similarities. Yes, the differences make us different, but also this is something that I would like to say, the people that do capoeira is not, como eu posso falar? Desculpa aí que eu tô mudando a língua, porque é melhor para explicar em português. As pessoas que praticam capoeira são os capoeiristas, não os praticantes, como eu posso falar. Se você estuda uma cultura, mas você é capoeirista, não está dizendo você essa porque você estuda disso. E a gente tem que, às vezes, quando parar de pensar e escutar outra pessoa. E esse que é a minha dica para capoeira, igual que você está criando uma criança, que várias formas, porque sua criança não toda vez vai estar do lado de vocês. Eles aprendem com o tio, o pai, vizinho, eles assim. Para mim, eu tenho que explicar desse jeito, porque aqui que como eu fui criado e eu estava vendo algumas coisas a gente estava perdendo. Mas para mim eu quero a gente ser tratado capoeira igual que a gente está fazendo a criança, no melhor possível que a gente sabe fazer. Obrigado.
I'm just gonna say real quick, Sarada, is it okay if I go? I feel, you know, I don't know how everyone is raised in capoeira here. I have my experience with my teacher. You know, I was fortunate to grow up doing folkloric shows and being around, you know, Candomblé is not my religion, but I've been around it and I have a deep respect for it. And that has been my experience in capoeira. So there has never really been any disconnect for me with the Afro-Brazilian side. You know, I can't say that capoeira is just African. I don't believe that, because it was developed in Brazil by Black people. I mean, they weren't considered Brazilian at that time, you know, and it has evolved into what it is today. But I think it's very important to just not allow the history to be taken away. Even there, so many times you see people taking off the Afro-Brazilian part of it. It's just Brazilian. And I think that's like a little subtle way of trying to cut some of the history out, you know? And everybody has a different experience. I don't know what everybody's experience is. Maybe your teacher is not super into that, but I think it's our responsibility to do the research. Like Malandro said, maybe, and look, I've had 7 or 8 bachizados. The first 5 is you couldn't even talk to me because I was just so stressed out the whole time. So I understand how stressful it is to organize an event. But when we get to the point of, even when we're becoming more mature capoeiristas, we have to think about what is important. Is it just about the movements, or is it just about this workshop? What are we trying to pass on? So my hope for capoeira is continuing to educate people on the history, and also opening up more lines of communication. All right, let's not shy away from these uncomfortable topics. Like, this conversation was very important for a lot of people to understand our perspective. So having more communication and really upholding the history more. And there's a lot of teachers in this chat, and I think it's our responsibility to keep that going. Otherwise, it's just gonna, turn into whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna throw shade on anything else, but like, it's gonna turn into whatever it is, and I don't want that to happen, and it's even making me think about how I want to change myself as a teacher, because it's very easy to just show up to class, teach the movements, and leave, right? That's the easiest part. But now thinking about how we want to organize our classes or events or rodas, that makes a big difference.
Thank you, Mutu. And shedding light is not throwing shade. Sarada?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Keeping the quality there is super important. But this is the way we do it, by we're getting us together, having these conversations, making us better as teachers, making us better as community members, making us better as leaders. So as far as the question goes, and what I'd like to see I'd like to see more conversations. I'd like to see this happen more often. I'd like us to put each other up instead of putting each other down. I want to be a good example for what proud leaders look like, so that people can join and feel like they're supporting the right cause. I want to unify us more as a community through these types of conversations. Why didn't we have this conversation when hundreds of women were feeling discriminated against in the art that they chose tons of time to put their life into? When they're getting grappled in the roda of health, why didn't we have one of these conversations then? And how can these sharing of our values make us stronger outside of the roda as a community? I think that capoeira is so much that it's hard to focus on all of the right things at the right time. It's like, oh, there's the historical aspect, there's the music, there's movement, there's so much stuff that it's easy to get distracted and not put your energy into the right things. But also, we need to be able to be compassionate in the sense that let people ask the questions about the historical aspects. I see a lot of people being very guilty because they weren't raised with the way you were, for example, Muito. They didn't have that historical aspect, but they still love the art, and they have to learn it later on in their lives, and they're guilty. They feel bad. They can't ask the questions. It's unfortunate that we're not compassionate to the fact that we all come from a different parent, a different lineage, and how can we support each other? Like, maybe you've learned some things that I have no clue about, and we're studying the same thing. So we should be able to share in and grow together outside of the Roda.
Thank you. Cocada, Onda, Amazonas.
If I may, I started typing because I want to be brief, respecting the time, and also remember my point. So my hope is that people take on this challenge to be lifelong learners and to bring capoeira from the Roda into their lives. So don't just learn movements, but also bring other tools from outside of capoeira into your perspective, both inside of your school, whether you're a student or a leader of a school. You bring in different tools to make sense of the lessons that you're giving in capoeira, and then you turn around and bring those lessons back into the real world. So what am I saying about, what do I mean by that? I mean, know what's needed and what the assets are, both those things, what's needed and what the assets are in your community. Teach your students to do the same. Be committed to leadership and to growing leaders. And that doesn't mean that you have to stand at a podium. It can mean that in your household, you lead your children. In your community, you look out for the kids playing on the street. If you are at your job, that you're making sure that every voice is valued. Taking capoeira outside of the Roda means taking turns playing, not kicking people while they're down, calling ye when things get dirty, singing a song to call attention to what's wrong or to what should be happening. Those are things that make sense to people in the etiquette of capoeira. Take that outside. And if you wouldn't do something in your family or outside, don't bring that into the Roda. Make it a two-way street and continue growing and learning. That's my challenge, and I hope that everybody accepts it.
Cocada.
You know, I just hope that the conversation continues. There's so many teachers out there that have incredible amounts of experience in capoeira. Everybody's experience in capoeira is unique and it's different, and we all have something to contribute and we all have something to share. And we've been fighting for a long time. Women have been fighting for a long time. Black women have been fighting for a long time to be part of the Roda, to be seen, to be heard. And I just really want these things to not be silenced. I want them to be heard, even if it makes people uncomfortable, because one person's experience is something that needs to be acknowledged so that the art can grow and evolve the way it naturally should. So, I mean, if anything, I would say, you know, to listen, to research, to ask questions, to share stories, to be honest, you know, be intimidating. You know what I'm saying? We're training up, we're doing an Afro-Brazilian martial art. We're doing, the key word is martial art. If you are not paying attention, if you're not serious, if your intention isn't clear, then you're going to get hurt. That's it, you know. And sometimes people see women, as Onda was saying, like I've been seen as intimidating. Me as well, you know. It might look that way because I'm serious and I know what it feels like to get hurt. I know what it feels like to get kicked because I'm playing around. Not every class is to be jovial. Some classes, you know, it's about learning fight. You know, some classes is about learning defenses. Some classes about learning how to fall. You know, and so there is an element of like, you have your serious face on and that might look intimidating to some people, but it's also necessary because you need to focus. So if anything, my hope is that people continue this work and continue to trust your teacher, continue to trust your teacher's teacher, ask questions. Don't be silent. If you see something, even if in your capoeira community, in your capoeira school, that somebody said, don't talk about that. You need to go about it in a way that is appropriate and still talk about it, because why can't I talk about it? Why can't I ask a question? You know, what is with silencing me in that way? Why don't you want to hear what I have to say? You know, so I love you guys all, and I'm so grateful that everybody took the time out of their day to hear what all the panelists has to say. It really is important for the evolution and the continuation of capoeira, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this moment. So thank you.
Amazonas, my dear sister, you've taken your locks out. Let's go.
You know, it gets a little hot under here sometimes. That time of life, you know, the little private summers. But anyway, shedding light and not throwing shade. All the other panelists hit great points, and I concur with each of them. I'm going to take this time to say that I hope that the Capoeira leaders, not just those with titles, anyone who has a platform. You have a little kid who's looking at you, you have a sister who's looking across the room to you through a screen, whatever it is, whoever your platform is, somebody looks up to you. I need you to realize that. When you realize that, I also want you to realize that you have power and you have the ability to influence change. So what is my point? I have kids or friends, you know, they're not necessarily citizens yet. What do? We take their kids to the voting booth and say, this is what it looks like. So when it's your turn, you know your responsibility. We're in an election year. We have a lot of things going on. Do your research. I'm asking that Capoeira leaders get information to their students. Tell them where they can go find some of these things, all right? We are leaders. We are people who are looking for information from us, that we use these platforms to help us to find the resources that we need. I found out my niece was sick. I called on the Mansa. What do you know that I can give to her to help her to get better? What's going to get them in the right track? I'm not sure what to do. I'm calling Versace. Versace, okay, put in your therapy. I'm using my researchers to help me, my resources to help me to help us. So I would hope that capoeiristas, capoeira leaders, capoeira, whatever you call yourself, realize that you too can ask for help as you help someone else. You don't have to have all the answers. Use the information that you know to know that you need to learn more. Use this as a platform for you to grow, not just intrinsically, but to grow your community. Because a voice that's not speaking has power also, because silence is powerful also. We have appreciation as musicians for space and sound and silence. Now is not the time to be silent. Talk to each other, grow with each other, heal each other, move forward with each other. Those who are falling, pick them up by the bootstrap, drag the person by their foot in their heel. They're like, I don't know, help them. Because that's our responsibility. Kanshika, you are making a drum, brother? What's going on?
Ashe.
Ashe, irmão. Silêncio, por favor. S'il vous plaît, mon frère.
So, you know, Capoeira is about negotiation of bodies in space, you know, and that's a political experience. And so, you know, I hope that we've been able to negotiate this space well. Muito tempo, I'm going to turn it over to you and hope, you know, give us a little update on where the donations are at, close us out, you know, maybe unmute everybody so they can say thank you. And then,
before we unmute everybody, let me just
yeah.
before,
Go ahead.
I want to shout out Bamboo for being a great moderator, and thank you. We have some amazing people in this chat. Everybody's amazing, but we have mestres, mestras, contramestras, contramestres, all level teachers. Thank you for being a part of this. You know, I'm gonna just give you a quick update. If you wanna donate, you can. I'm gonna write my Venmo right here. Does anybody remember where we were when we started? I don't remember.
2,200.
Yeah.
2250.
2250. Oh, just got another Venmo.
Good.
We
And
are
that's just-
at 3,500.
Called it.
3,500 right now. So, you know, thank you everybody. This is gonna go a long way to support teachers. I think this is a great idea to continue these conversations. One second, Malanda, you got it. And even using this platform to fundraise for our different teachers in Brazil. Sarara was talking about having that conversation about women in Capoeira and their issues. I think that's a great topic to have. It's another thing that's gonna be, it's one of those uncomfortable things that we need to address in our community. So I'm a really big fan of this idea of moving this forward. Maybe we can do this monthly, but just, you know, look out for some information about those coming up.